Hello, this is Math, Unit 7, Session 2.2. We're skipping around a little bit because this is a brand new concept for students. We're just briefly discussing fractions so that they have had at least a little bit of an introduction to it before they go to third grade. So we're moving beyond 1/2 today. We're going to talk a little bit about 1/3 and 1/4, what that looks like and how that can be represented. So on this chart, it wants to know the number of equal pieces. When we talk about fractions, we must refer to equal pieces. So there are 2 equal pieces here. There are 3 equal pieces in size here. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 equal pieces or parts of that whole, is what I wish this said. Okay, now there is one part that is shaded red. There is one part that is shaded red in this rectangle, and there is one part that is shaded red in this rectangle. So when we talk about writing fractions, this first one is the one that we have discussed. One part is shaded out of 2 possible parts. And you will learn in third grade that the top number is called the numerator and the bottom number is called the denominator. You do not need to know that for right now. That's just a little bit of vocabulary there. All right, on this rectangle, we have one part that is shaded red out of 3 possible parts. This is pronounced 1/3. Out of this rectangle, we have one part shaded red out of 1, 2, 3, 4 possible parts, and this fraction is pronounced 1/4. Sometimes we even have students who can write the fractions, but when they're reading along or speaking about them, they have trouble with 1/3 and 1/4. All right, a very common mistake is for the student to represent the shaded number and or colored number and the part that is not. So they may write 1/2 because they see 1 red and 2 white, but then they look at it, they know in their mind that this is not 1/2 and that shouldn't make sense. They might call this, though, more easily 1/3 because 1/3 isn't something we see too often. And we've got 1 red and 3 white, so they can kind of talk themselves into that one making sense. Just be aware that if you see a child doing that, that's a very common mistake in the beginning and it's easily corrected. Throughout this whole Unit 7, they talk about flags. They use these rectangles as fractions. If we were at school, we would be doing a lot of these pages where they have students color each part of the flag a different color. And for purposes of time, I'm going to use white as a color. They do so many of these that sometimes students will figure out, and they would be a lot neater than me. They figure out, well, if I just took out a red and went through the page and colored one part of every flag red, then I wouldn't have to pick up and put down my crayons as often. Okay, so that middle flag is actually done because I'm going to call a color white. This is done, so I'm going to pick up a blue. Now I'm going to color this. So this flag will be completely colored because I'm going to call it red, white, and blue. I'm going to call this red, white. I'm going to have this flag have red, white, and blue. On this one, I have to pick a 4th color because there are 4 equal parts. And that's one thing we were wanting them to see, the parts of the whole, which we refer to in math a lot. All right. Now it'll be a little bit difficult for me to write. They would do a much better job. So we're going to write what fraction of this flag is red. So one part is red out of 3 possible parts. One part is white out of 3 possible parts, and one part is blue out of 3 possible parts. So the red represents a third, the white represents 1/3, and the blue represents 1/3. On this flag, one part is shaded red out of 2 possible parts, and one part was left white out of 2 possible parts. Red represents 1/2 of this flag, and white represents half of this flag. On flag number 3, one part is shaded red out of 4 possible parts. One part is shaded blue out of 4 possible parts. One part is shaded green out of 4 possible parts. And one part is shaded white out of 4 possible parts. Now, if we were at school, they would be writing also the color. They would be writing red here, white here, and blue here. But for time's sake, we're going to skip that part. I would like to just show them one other thing quickly. I want them to know that it is not true that we always just have one part shaded. It's possible, and sometimes as they increase their understanding, we allow them, or I allow them, to just color the flag however they would like. So in this case, you might actually find 3 parts were shaded out of 4 parts. All I'm saying, students, is that we chose to color 3 out of 4, and that is pronounced 3/4. So I just want you to realize that it's not always 1 on top, and you will when you get to 3rd grade. Now, the page you will be seeing in your packet today is this clock page, and you should be extremely familiar with it. All they're asking you to do is to look at the clock to write the time digitally. For example, this one is written as 1:30, and write it with words, 1:30. And spelling, of course, does not count on math, but if they give you the word 30 right here, it's just a good opportunity to start practicing spelling that word correctly. All right. Have fun doing math.